smartest video that I do. I won't be wronged, I won't be insulted, I won't be laid hand upon. I don't do these things to other people, and I require the same from them. These are the opening lines from a great Western called The Shootist with John Wayne. I've always loved cowboy flicks because the cowboys always seem to live by a code of conduct, a code of belief, and a code of morals and actions. Throughout my life, I have sought out people that I admired, and I tried to emulate the qualities in them that I wanted to develop in myself. I suggest everyone do this because it gives you a model to follow. In my life, there have been quite a few role models. There was, of course, my father, whose tenacity and love of life is legendary. There was Glenn W. Turner, whose love of his fellow man allowed him to become one of the most beloved men in the United States. Jack Barry was the greatest stage hypnotist I ever saw. Billy D. Cox was the greatest entertainer I ever saw. I studied all of these people and I tried to learn from all of them. But I think the greatest lessons I've ever learned came from someone you've probably never heard of. His name was J. Madison Finley. This is Jay. From Jay, I learned many things. Two stand out in my mind. First, anything can be fixed with duct tape. And second, I learned what it meant to be honest and to have integrity and character. Jay was the last of a breed. He was a man whose work ethic never faltered and whose honesty and integrity are remembered by everyone who knew him. To understand the man, I need to tell you his story. Jay grew up in Washington State. As a young man, he dreamed of being a champion Olympic skier. When he was 19, his dreams were about to come true. He was selected to represent America in the Winter Olympics. Like many 19-year-olds, to celebrate, he decided to go drinking. He knew his coach would never allow it, so he lied to the coach about where he was going, and then he proceeded to hit the night spots of Vancouver. In the early hours of the morning, Jay crashed his car. He was in a coma for several months, and when he woke up, he realized that he was lucky to be alive, but his dreams of being an Olympic champion were dead. Both of his ankles had been pulverized, and he was never to ski again. Jay accepted the responsibility for what had happened and made himself a promise. He would never again have a drink, and he would never again tell a lie. I met Jay in the late 70s. My career as a stage hypnotist was about 2 months old, and I still had not found an agent to represent me. I was in Orlando, Florida, walking past a motel room when I looked in the window and saw a man sitting at a table sorting through band photos. I assumed correctly that he was an agent. I knocked on his door, and a 6'4" giant answered. I introduced myself and started lying right away. I told him that I had the greatest hypnosis show ever and had just fired my agent. He interrupted me and said he was too busy to listen to lies, so if I would excuse him, he was very busy. I went by his room the next day and apologized. I asked him if I could please start over. He chuckled and said, "Sure, kid, go ahead." I told him I'd actually only done a few shows and couldn't get any agent to come even see me or talk to me. I told him I had a job for 3 more nights at the Holiday Inn down the street, and I was just working for my food and room. I told him that if I didn't get an agent or another job, I didn't have enough money to get out of town. He said he would come to see me that night. I didn't see him there, so I assumed he had just forgotten or gotten busy, and I went by the hotel the next day and I found he'd checked out of his room. So I gave up on yet another agent. 2 nights later, after my last show, as I was leaving the club, Jay was waiting for me in the lobby. He said that he'd been there all 3 nights, but he didn't want me to know, because he wanted to see who I was when no one was looking. I didn't understand that at the time, and I didn't understand it for many years, but I never forgot it. He bought me breakfast that night and said, after we talked, he said that he would be my personal agent and manager. I asked about a contract with him, and he said, sure, we could draw up a contract. We never did. Jay let me stay at his house until he could get me some jobs, and I got on my feet. 30 years later, he was still my agent and manager, and we still never had a contract. In the 30 years I knew him, I never knew this man to tell a lie about anything, which I learned is highly unusual for an agent. Oh, Jay could be tactful. If my girlfriend asked him if the pants made her ass look big, he might just say, "No, the pants don't do it." Because Jay would not lie. He would not tolerate anyone that would. I remember once in Puyallup, Washington, a theater manager promised us his room could seat 1,500 people. We rented the room and sold 1,500 tickets. The day of the show, the manager told us that the fire department would only allow him to have 1,000 people in the room and that he couldn't use his balcony. He had known this, but he had lied to get the sale. He told us that if he allowed 1,500 people in the room, the potential fine could cause him to lose money on the event. Jay just nodded his head and told the manager he wanted to show him something upstairs. Took him up to the balcony. They walked off. About 3 minutes later, I heard a noise and I looked up. This 6'4" giant was dangling the theater manager over the balcony by one ankle. Yes, like you see in the movies. But in the calmest voice I have ever heard, he said, "Son, you need to learn that your word is more important than your money." That night we had 1,500 people at the show. By this time I was Jay's only client and he was more of my business partner than my agent. We were the first show to begin videotaping and selling the tapes to the people on stage. His idea. We were the first show to sell the smoking and weight CDs and tapes. His idea. We were the first to move into the fair industry. His idea. It was Jay's code not to tolerate dishonesty in any way. He knew that there were thieves in our business, but we did not have to associate with or do business with them. If the bank made an error, and I saw this happen once, made an error in his favor, he took the money back down to the bank and explained no, and he had to go through the books to show them why it was their money and not his. He said if a person will steal little things, they'll steal big ones. He told me that one of the reasons he had agreed to represent me in the first place was I had told him I would not do anyone else's material because I considered it stealing. Jay smoked for 40 years, and 2 years after he quit smoking, he got throat cancer. They removed his voice box and teeth and started him on chemotherapy, and Jay began to use the talker. We bought a gold mine in Arizona, and Jay moved out there and started digging gold. He didn't want to be around people anymore. He let his beard grow, and I swear he looked like Gabby Hayes. Some of you younger folks don't know who that is, but trust me, it's a look you don't see often. He started with 15 acres and ended up with 2,500 acres. The only money that we put into it was in the beginning, but everything else was from the gold he dug out of the ground. We ended up with backhoes and bulldozers and water plants. We had a smelting operation. Once a month, Jay would come into Vegas and bring me my share of the gold or money or records to show what had happened. I told him, "Jay, don't make the trip. Don't worry about it. I don't need to see it." I knew that he would take a bullet before he would lie or steal. Jay not only dared to be great, he defined greatness. It was July 1st when Jay came to my house. He told me the cancer was back and that they had given him only a couple of months. He said he didn't want to die in a hospital and asked if he could die in my home. We converted the pool room into a hospital room and Jay moved in. I'm telling you this story, or this part of the story, to illustrate what true integrity is. He promised me that he wouldn't die on my birthday, August the 14th, and he laughed and we assumed he was joking. We spent the next month talking and remembering old times, but by August 1st, this huge man was down to 90 pounds. He was too weak to even use his talker. On August 10th, he kept asking me what the date was. We both knew that the end was only days away. And on August 14th, my birthday, his pain medication was no longer working, and I begged him to let go, just to let it in. He motioned for his talker, and I handed it to him, and he found the strength to say, "I gave my word I would not ruin your birthday forever. I don't lie." There was a clock over his bed, and at 12:01, August 15th, J. Madison Finley passed away. To his dying breath, a man of his word. If you ever think, or might think, that a white lie won't hurt, or it might be okay to take something that is not yours, I hope you remember this story and this man whose code said, "The only true value a person can have is their integrity and honor. God bless you, Jay.